Last week, we took a look at the Battle of Verdun, one of the most iconic battles for France and the entirety of World War I. Today, we're heading back to the weaponry of the First World War, known as the first submachine gun that saw actual combat in the First World War. In the hands of Germany, we have the Bergmann MP18. Let's start off with a little background information. As you may already know, trench combat in the early years of the war was quite difficult. Soldiers were equipped with long bolt-action rifles excellent for accurate fire at long range. However, when it came to the close-quarters combat in the trenches, they were rather difficult to use effectively. By 1915, it was obvious that better weaponry was needed for this close-quarter combat. Pistols at the time were modified with stocks and larger magazines to fit this role, but they weren't really effective since they'd have a considerable amount of recoil and the gun would often overheat. The pistols were never really designed to fit this kind of role, so something better had to be made. In 1915, the German Rifle Testing Commission actually decided to design a weapon for the sole purpose of trench combat, but it wasn't until the year 1918 where the MP-18 was finished and saw use on the front lines. Some 5,000 to 10,000 units of the MP-18 were produced in the anticipation of an upcoming offensive for the Germans. Once the MP-18 units were ready to use, they'd go hand in hand with the German Spring Offensive of 1918, the Kaiserschlacht Offensive. The offensive introduced the use of stormtroopers, and with their MP-18s in hand, the Germans were almost unstoppable. The overall effectiveness of the MP-18 with the sharp and quick tactics for the offensive were unrivaled at the time. With its role during the First World War out of the way, let's go ahead and take a more detailed look into the weapon itself. Surprisingly, it was quite a heavy submachine gun. Weighing in around 5 kilograms or 11 pounds when fully loaded, this weapon was not light and swift as you would imagine submachine guns to be. Its metallic parts, wooden frame, and its magazine took a toll on its user. Speaking of its magazine, it was originally intended to have a stick magazine. However, more models often came out with the TM08 drum magazine, often called the snail drum, capable of holding 32 rounds in total. This drum magazine was primarily made for the Luger P08, but since it was so common, it was used for the MP18 as well. The magazine had indicators to let you know approximately how many bullets were left in the magazine. Sticking out the left side of the MP18, you can imagine it had an effect on how the gun was used. The weight of the drum magazine pulled the gun slightly down to the left, which is represented in-game where the MP18 is held at an angle, unlike the other weapons in the game. The MP18 was also held in many different ways. It could either be held on the wooden grip or by the magazine, similar to how it is in Battlefield 1, however it was more commonly held with an underhand grip used to fire when in a crouching position, your underhand grabbing the magazine and your elbow resting on the knee that was pressed up while crouched. Bullets left the barrel of the MP18 between 400 to 500 rounds per minute, with a bullet velocity of 380 meters per second. It had a perforated barrel to help with air cooling, and it had a pretty advanced way of a safety mechanism. You could pull back the bolt to where it could be locked, safe from any nudges that would accidentally make the weapon go live. However, the gun would sometimes go off without notice if it is hit hard enough, causing enough force to be able to trigger a single round. At the end of World War I with the Treaty of Versailles, Germany was only able to hold a certain number of machine guns. A myth was that the treaty banned the production of the MP-18, however that was false. After the war, the MP-18 saw use with police forces throughout Germany. The MP-18 served as the father of the common SMG, you could say. The MP-18 paved the way for numerous submachine guns, with the British even directly copying its design for its Royal Navy and by Russia as well. The MP-18 also had a lot of influence on one of the most iconic SMGs ever made, the PPSH-41. The MP-18's use even saw all of its way to wars in Japan where it was used. As a paveway to other weapons in the future, the MP-18 was extremely effective in both trench and urban combat. Within Battlefield 1, it's a robust and solid choice for the assault class, offering a nice middle ground between close and medium range. So that about wraps up today's episode of Battlefield 1 History. Let me know in the comments down below as to what I should cover next, and I'll pick it for next week's episode. And as always, it's been BloodHound, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.